Lab number 4, we're going to do the first exercise by creating a VM using the ARM template. Now this requires you have the GitHub files from Microsoft Learning GitHub repository, AZ500. You'll need this all file available locally for this Lab 4 to deploy a virtual machine. Alright, so we're going to select template deployment. Template deployment. Select build your own template in the editor. Navigate to the downloaded lab files. Select the template. Save the template. Go to edit parameters. Upload the parameter. Parameters.json. Save it. We're going to store this in a new resource group. Our next exercise will implement Azure MFA. We're going to activate the Azure AD Premium trial so we can make use of the MFA, conditional access, as well as the privilege identity management and the Azure Identity Protection feature. So first we need to activate the Azure AD Premium feature. Alright, so this is already a brand new directory. I'm going to go and select licenses. All products. Now part of activating the Premium P2 is an identity verification. Alright, so once this Premium trial has been activated, later as we start to use things like PIM, Privilege Identity Management, we will need to associate it with a MFA info for ourselves and verify our identity. So you may need to have a cell phone that can receive text message later on to confirm your identity. Alright, now we're going to create 3 users, AAD user 1, AAD user 2, and user 3. Please see lab 1 in creating a user. Now user 1 will be assigned AD role of global admin, user 2 will be standard user, AD user 3 will be also standard user. Now this is to create the first user. Ensure that you write down the password and select roles. This is Active Directory roles, not RBAC roles that manage resources. Okay. So here we are going to select Global Administrator as the directory role. And we'll continue to create AAD user 2 and 3. Now no special assignment will be made for 2 and 3, they will just be standard users. Now as you add this user, you can click on this to copy the username and use Notepad to have a note of it. In auto-generate password, make sure you click show password, copy that into the Notepad as well. You need the username password for these users you're creating now, later to log into to access resources. Now that we have these users, we are going to assign them Azure Active Directory licenses. Now, there is a user property that must be populated before license can be assigned. So I want to ensure that this is highlighted. Okay. The usage location of a user must be populated prior to license that can be assigned to it. So make sure that's taken care of. So click on edit. and we'll assign the location for all three users. Now all three users have the locations assigned. We're going to go to licenses and assign. Alright, so in this task, you'll add assign licenses to the three users you've created and yourself. So we're going to go ahead and sign out and sign back in. Alright, now the user has been assigned the premium licenses. We are going to Azure Active Directory and configure the MFA settings. So under Manage, scroll all the way down, you'll find Security. Under the Security element, select MFA. Now this will take you to configure additional settings. Now you can configure the service settings, whether or not to allow app password to be generated. Now, not all applications that we use are browser-based where it can interactively challenge us for multi-factor. So for older apps, for example, mobile apps that may not be aware of MFA, they can sign in with an application specific password. Now you can also specify which IP you trust that you would like to skip MFA for those IPs. All right. Now you can also say I would like to skip multi-factor for federated user on my intranet. The method of which we can verify user's identity, text message, mobile app or hardware token. Whether or not to allow users to remember the MFA for X amount of days without being constantly challenged. All right. Now also notice another way we can make it more user-friendly is by using conditional access policy. Perhaps we can define conditions which make it less security critical to, under certain conditions, not challenge MFA. So this is under service settings. Now we're going to switch over to user. The user section. Now we're going to assign AD user 1, enable MFA. All right, there you go. Now you can also, once the user's enabled MFA, you may enforce it. Okay. So after the MFA is enforced, user will need to create app password. So all sign-in through browsers will be enforced with MFA challenge, or otherwise they will not be able to log in. For non-browser application, you're going to have to use an app password to sign in. All right. Now we have this user enabled for the MFA. We're going to go to Manage User Settings. All right. So there are three things. You can specify require select users to provide contact information again. So if they have previously provided value, you can ask them again, delete all existing application password, perhaps it's been compromised. Restore MFA on all remembered devices. So challenge them again for MFA. All right. So we're going to cancel this, not make any changes here. Now we're going to go back to the MFA. Then navigate to the fraud alert. Now, users may be sent a text message which offers them the option of replying one if it's a fraudulent sign-in. So you can allow users to provide feedback such as I did not initiate this MFA. Okay. You can also enable the users to be blocked from sign-in once they have reported uninitiated MFA challenge. All right, so here is you can specify the code. So press 0 to report MFA fraud. Now to validate the MFA configuration, you're going to need a cell phone that can receive text. So we're going to start a private browser. We will sign in to the Azure portal. With the AAD user 1 credential. So make sure you have that. So this is now soliciting MFA information. Now we can use a Microsoft Authenticator app, or I can say I want to set up a different method. Alright, so once you're able to verify the SMS, this would have completed the MFA. Alright, so here I'm selecting the method 2 as email. Alright, so that completes the user sign-in experience to use MFA. So future sign-in, user will be challenged by the MFA. So on subsequent sign-in, the Azure will send a code to your phone, and you must provide that code in order to sign in. Now, it depends on whatever second factor you have configured. You also have to acknowledge that this is a MFA challenge. Now we're going to close the incognito. Now next exercise 3, we will be configuring Azure AD conditional access policy. Conditional access policy. So navigate back to the directory security section, conditional access. We'll be creating conditional access policy that requires MFA when signing into the Azure portal. Now Azure portal is the application we're trying to protect. So we're going to select new policies. Give the policy a name. We're going to target specific user. AAD user 2. Now we could also exclude certain users rather than include. Cloud apps or actions. The app we want trying to protect is the Microsoft Azure Management. And this represents your portal application. Now in the conditions, this is where we apply the conditions to decide whether access should be granted or denied, or things such as MFA should be used to access the resource. Right. So in this conditions, it's possible to say make decisions based on sign-in risks, such as impossible travel or signing from anonymous IP. These all carry certain risk. So you can say if the risk matches the condition. Also, if things like device platforms, right? Location of the sign-in attempt, client application. These all makes up the conditions, so that we can decide whether the access should be granted or the access should be blocked. Now, if we were to grant access based on these matched condition and apps and user, we may require multi-factor authentication. We can select multiple options. Okay. Required client apps, okay, to access this. Now further down, for multiple controls, this is where you can specify whether all checkbox must be satisfied, or as long as one of them is met, we will allow access to the app. All right, select that. So we're just going to leave require multi-factor, and as long as one of those is satisfied, we're in good shape. All right. Now make sure the policy is actually enabled to have it take effect. All right, and let's create this policy. Now the policy is created, we're going to open up another incognito window, try to sign in as user 2. Now this user 2 should be challenged by MFA. Use a different window. AD user 1 had the MFA enabled at individual user level, and AD user 2 have it enabled via conditional access. So, all right, so here we can go through the activity of verifying this credential again. We won't do this again. Okay, so, but it's just like the last time. All right, so you can see the conditional access does challenge user for multi-factor sign-in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make sure this policy is deleted for our next activity. Exercise 4 will be working with Azure AD Identity Protection. Now, this is a intelligent product that protect your Azure AD identities. Okay, so this product defines risk pertaining to user's identity. So when user's identity is at risk, how should we handle this user's interaction? And also, the act of sign in are risky, and how are we planning on responding to these risky sign-in attempts? So this product here will protect the identity within your Azure AD. So some of the user risk policy would be leaked credential, okay, credential that's been stored in paste bin, etc. All right, so when it comes to risky user credentials, we're going to include all users. Now, typically, you want to have a few users who are not subjected to the risk assessment, so they will always be able to sign in without identity protection challenging. All right. So here we specify the user risk. All right. So these user risk defines certain acts or certain facts that can indicate the user's account has been compromised. For example, a user's account shows up in the dark web list, or a user account is leaked through some other agency. And the way we can mitigate that is by either block their access outright, so we can block them from signing in at all, or we can say we do allow you to access, but since your credential has potentially been leaked, we're going to require a password change to make sure that whatever leaked credential will not be used to access this directory and this resource. All right, so enforce policy on, and this will apply user risk policy. Now, in the sign-in risk policy, we're going to do similar things, include all users and exclude ourselves. All right. Again, there are various sign-in risks. Now, because this sign in may be suspicious, perhaps you've connected to a VPN server or you connected to a Tor network, uh, the sign in would be considered a risky activity, or you're signing in from an IP address that's known botnet. So, the way to mitigate this sign in being risky is to either block them outright or allow access but requires MFA to further confirm the identity of the user before we allow the sign in to proceed. All right, now to test whether this risky Azure Identity Protection is in effect, I'm going to use the Tor network from the browser Brave. So the Brave browser has built-in private window with Tor. Enter the password to attempt to sign in. Now a message that says your sign-in was blocked because MFA is required, but AAD user has not yet provided MFA details, so therefore the sign-in will be blocked. Now we're going to try a different user that has MFA information. All right, then you can see the suspicious activity detected because we are connected through the Tor network. And we're going to go ahead and verify. So once the verification is underway, and I'm able to sign in to the Microsoft service. Now I'm going to close this window. All right. So back to the portal, I should be able to look at reports to see if it has captured risky sign-in activity. So in the risky sign-in report, you'll notice that there will be an entry. Sometimes it has a few minute delay before it shows up. Make sure clear all these filters to see the entry, and it will say, well, interrupted. What's the reason? Sign-in error code, and the user that triggered this suspicious sign-in. All right. So now let's conclude the lab 4. We need to clean up all the resources. So let's go back to identity protection. Make sure we enforce policy and turn off the sign-in risk policy. Now for this resource, make sure you do not delete this VM. Make sure you stop them until the next lab comes around. So make sure this resource group is retained for the next lab. So do not remove this VM. Okay, just make sure that you stop the VM. Click on the VM, stop it. Now this VM serves the purpose of running the Tor browser if you follow the instruction. Now if you have a locally installed Brave browser, then you certainly don't need to use this for now. This is lab number 5, privileged identity management. So in this lab, we'll explore what privileged identity management can do. So let's start by heading to the PIM section. So right on top, type in PIM. All right, so the PIM service covers directory roles. You can access directory roles from Azure AD roles or RBAC roles. That's specific to subscriptions, resource groups, roles. So we're going to start with Azure AD roles. We're going to assign AAD user So we're going to add assignment. The role is billing administrator. AAD user 2. All right, so making this assignment with PIM, we have a choice between eligible and active. Eligible assignment requires the users to activate the role after signing on to receive the privileges defined in that AD roles. Active assignment is our traditional approach. As soon as you are assigned this role, the moment you sign in, you have these privileges available to you. So now we're going to make it eligible, and this will be made permanent, or you can say this assignment will end, and this assignment will be removed automatically when the time expires in a year. This is an example. For our exercise, we'll just make it permanently eligible. Right. So now we're going to navigate to settings. In the settings, you will find for each role what is the nature of the role. For instance, certain roles are more higher privileged, so perhaps the activation of that role requires an approver. Or a certain role should not be permanently assigned. Okay, so in the settings is where you can specify roles. All right, so you can also access that through manage roles. Okay, so these are all the roles as well. So here, let's go to, oops, not billing, global reader. All right, so we can also go to role settings this way. Click on edit. All right, so here we can say once you activate this role, we will require justification. How long will the user receive the privilege defined in this role, and require approver. So we're going to make AAD user 3 the approver. All right. Whether or not to allow this role to be assigned permanently, or do you, or whether you want to allow permanent active assignment, which allows them to just sign in and get the privilege. Okay, so if you disallow it or allow it, okay, if you disallow it, you will assign a maximum active assignment period. So that means you can choose any amount of time shorter than 6 months, but you will not be able to give active assignment longer than 6 months. Same drill here. So if you allow, if you don't allow permanent eligible assignment, you can say what's the maximum duration. All right, so we're gonna leave them at default. Otherwise, all pretty self-explanatory. All right, whether or not we should receive notifications upon activation. All right. So notify when members are assigned as eligible. When members are assigned as active. So we'll receive an email telling us someone has been assigned to this role. And we can also say we would like to be notified when one actually activate these roles. All right, so we don't have to constantly review the request. We don't need to constantly review the membership. We'll just be notified of it. All right, so we're going to make an assignment to the global reader. Again, we're going to select AD user 2. All right, so make sure it is an eligible assignment. All right, so in the global reader settings, just want to make sure I map to the lab exercise. So in the assignment, we will not allow permanent eligible assignment. I missed that step. So we're going to set that to maximum of 1 year. So I'm going to update that. Okay, now let's go back to the assignment. Okay. All right, so notice right now it says, well, you can't do permanent assignment. You can give it a year. Okay, so if you want more than a year, it will also tell you the maximum is a year. You can go lower, but not higher. Okay, so this eligible assignment means the user is eligible to activate this role for the next X amount of days. Task number 3, we're going to give a user permanent assignment to the role. This is task 3, exercise 1. We're going to assign AAD user 2 to security admin. So default directory, roles, security admin, add assignment. All right, so this will be eligible assignment and this will be permanent eligible because our role allows it. It's in the role settings. All right, now we're going to assign as AAD user 2 to test activation of roles. So we're going to activate roles that doesn't require approval, and also activate roles that does require approval. All right, so once users sign in, to activate roles, head over to PIM, head over to My Roles. Now with the 3 role assignment, Billing Administrator can be activated without approval. So let's click on Activate. All right, so here's a reason. All right, so after some time, the portal will refresh and it will tell you you have just activated a role. And this will tell you what is your current activated roles. So you will have access as Billing Administrator until that end time. Now we're going to try to activate another role that will require approval. All right, so you see the message, your request is pending approval. Now navigate back to the pin. You can select My Request to check on the status, as in at the moment still pending approval. Okay, you also have the choice to cancel this request. So I spawned up another private window, signed in as AAD user 3, which is the approver, and I'm going to go back to PIM3 as the approver. and approve requests. All right, and you can see that this is a role activation requests. Go ahead and approve this. All right, so I'm switching the tab back as AAD user 2. My request has disappeared. Now let's take a look at my roles. So because the approval was made by AAD user 3, you'll see the global reader privilege is ready for use. Now if AAD user 2 is done with its work, we should tell the user to proactively deactivate these privileges, to surrender these privileges. Next, exercise 3, we're going to take a look at another feature within the PIM, which is the access review feature. The purpose of access review is to ensure that people we assigned to privileges or groups really need to stay in those groups. So we want to set up a regular review process, review the members of those groups, and try to ensure that we provide justifications why they are in those groups. All right, so to start that process, we begin with PIM. In the PIM, select Manage AD Roles. Okay. Now you'll find a section called Access Reviews. We would like to create a regular review. Oops. All right, so because I'm AAD user 2, I'm actually not the PIM administrator, so I'm not a privileged access administrator, so I need to use the different account. So here I'm back to the PIM admin. So let's try this again. So now I'm going to create a new access review for the global reader. And the start date is today. We're going to start the review. Today is just a one-time review. Now this will run until perhaps end of the month or however duration that's reasonable for people to provide their justification. Now we want to look at all the members of that group. Now here we can say who should, well, the role that we want to perform our access review. So this is global reader. All right, and who should perform the review? Should member themselves review and provide justification, or should a designated user account be responsible? So I'm going to select my own account, VC2020. Now during this review process, we're going to collect feedback. Some user will state they continue to need these role assignment, and some user will say they don't need this role assignment. You could also make the results automatically apply to those AD roles. So if user says I no longer need this permission, this will automatically apply those changes. Now if the user do not respond to this access request, access review request, you can go ahead and simply either continue to approve them or remove their access. Right? Or take some built-in recommendations. Going to disable it. And this starts the access review process. So creating the access review can take up to 2 or 3 minutes. So let it finish thing, and once you can see the access review showing up in the tab, as a reviewer, you can go to Review Access and select this access review. At the moment, AAD user 2 belongs to this group, and here is where we can say approve to keep this user in the global reader, or deny to remove them. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and approve this. Now you can follow along with the progress by heading over to Access Reviews. You can click on this Access Review, and it's going to tell you out of this role there is one member and it has been approved. Now here is also an option to stop the review process, because at this point 100% of the user has been reviewed. So we can stop this review. Now keep in mind, these access review can be scheduled to run every quarter, every month, every year, depends on the security sensitivity. All right, so go back to default directory. We can look at the alerts, settings. All right, so these are things we can configure to be notified. All right, so if you have roles that doesn't require MFA, administrators aren't using their roles at all, okay, organization doesn't have P2, or certain roles being activated too frequently. So these are conditions that you would like to be notified of. All right, so back to PIM. So in the PIM overview, you'll see the role activation in the last 7 days, assignment. So this gives you a glance if your team members are taking advantage of this feature and their activity with this PIM service. All right. So within this PIM, you also have the ability to perform resource audit. Okay. So all the activities that has been performed within this PIM system, you can see who requested this activity and what has been performed, and the primary target, and whether it's successful or not. So this makes sure that everything is very traceable and highly visible. Now at the end of this lab exercise, you should clean up the VM created from module 4, even though I'm not 100% certain why we're using that VM for, but it was there created in the last lab, so let's go ahead and get rid of it. If you're doing this exercise with a brand new tenant, time to clean up the tenant. Instructions at the tail end of lab number 5. All right, so we're going to continue and wrap up this lab number 5. All right, lab number 6, we're going to deploy a virtual machine to perform AD Connect. All right, so in the lab exercise, we'll point you to the quick start template that creates a new VM. So deploy to Azure. So I'll be using this template, send it to the portal for deployment. Upload the parameters. So this is the downloaded lab 6 parameter.json. Save. All right, so we will load up the parameters, supply the value as per lab instruction. Select create. Now, while this lab machine is being created, we are going to create a new Active Directory tenant, which we sync the user account with. All right. So I suggest you may want to stick with something that's globally unique. Today's date, MNTD with your initial typically works well. All right, so let's go to the tenant. All right, so typically in the custom domain names, this is where you add and verify and try to match the domain name that you have at work to match the Azure Active Directory domain name. Now we won't be able to verify a datum. So we can certainly add it, but you will need to verify it to make sure you own that domain. Oops. Let's go back. So custom domain, a datum. All right, so because we are unable to verify this domain, we are going to perform the synchronization, and naturally we won't be able to verify. We will perform the synchronization. Now understand, user on-prem will have an account such as this. Now because we are unable to obtain this, adatum.com as a verified domain, that user will now have another account like that. Now in the real world, you will have your own company internet registered domain, and you will be able to use DNS, TXT record, or MX record to verify it. So they will have matching Azure AD username with Windows AD username. But we won't be able to do that here in the lab exercise because we're not going to go out, buy a domain, and verify it. So there's that. Now to perform the directory synchronization through AD Connect, we need to create a user in the Azure AD side whose job is to perform the synchronization. Now you need someone with global admin permission, global administrator permission. So here we're going to create an account called sync admin. So, all right, and this account will be assigned as a global administrator. Now make sure you display the temporary password so you can log on and change it. Now make sure the roles includes global administrator. So this user have the rights to write to the directories. All right, so I'm going to try to sign in as the sync admin and set up a password for it. All right, so now we need to access the virtual machine we deployed at the beginning of this lab. Make sure you switch to your original directory where these resources are created. Okay, so you should be able to find the virtual machine, and it should be done by now. The virtual machine should be called ADVM. Select connect. All right, so make sure you connect to the public IP, not the internal IP. All right, now that we're RDP into the machines, we're going to turn off the IE enhanced security and create a new user. All right, so once this remote desktop session is connected, go to local server. In the local server, select IE enhanced security, make sure that's all off. Now open up Internet Explorer. All right. Now make sure you switch. Make sure you are in the correct directory. So the correct directory is datum sync. So if you are in that directory, this is the correct place. So now we're going to navigate to Azure Active Directory. Search for AD Connect. Azure AD Connect. Download the tool and double click install it. All right, so select custom. We'll leave all the required components as default. Select install. Now Azure AD will copy or will replicate the password hash to authenticate cloud signing users by rehash the password hash. Select next. Now this is where we provide the credential to the sync admin. Next, the directory we would like to synchronize. All right, select create a new AD account. Now this will create an account with the correct privilege. Now select next. Now as we discussed earlier, we are not going to be able to verify the domain, so we're going to continue without matching all the UPN names. Now this allows you to filter based on OUs in your domain. So you can synchronize selected OUs. So in the ADDS tool, I'll create an organizational unit. So in the AD Administrative Center, which is available from the tools, I'm going to create a new organizational unit. In here, we'll create a new user. So this will be the user that we will synchronize over to Azure AD. So click on OK. All right. So apparently I just created OU, so it's not showing up on this page yet. I will proceed with the synchronization, and I will fire up the sync rule editor to add that OU back. So select next. All right, select next here. Next again. Take the default. do the install. Alright, so once the installation is complete, it's going to do an initial synchronization. Now, if you want to modify those OUs, there's two ways to do it. Number one is by firing up this desktop icon, Azure AD Connect. Select Configure, and you have a chance to customize synchronization options. So you can quickly use this to add the OU back into the synchronization. Now we can make the toSync the only OU that we will be synchronizing. Alright, so keep everything at default. The second way to add that is by using the synchronization rule editor. Now this will also give you a way to fine-tune what direction, what object, what attribute that you would like to synchronize. Alright, so once this is done, we are going to run the PowerShell to force a full synchronization. Now once the initial synchronization is done, it will do a full replication, and we can perform delta synchronization by running a PowerShell script. Switching back to our portal, we can see that this is a user that has been directory synced. All right. Now we're going to go back to the AD and make some attribute change and kick off a delta synchronization to see these attribute replicates from Azure AD to AD. So at the moment, AD user has no department information, so we're going to use, because the source of authority lives within the on-prem AD, so we're going to make changes here. I've just added the department attribute. All right, we're going to call start AD sync cycle to kick off a delta sync. All right, so once the delta sync succeeded, we come back to the portal, refresh the page, and you'll see that department sales is now populated. Keep in mind that you are not going to be able to edit these attributes because they have to be defined in the on-prem AD and then synchronized back. Now lastly, we're going to run some PowerShell script to disable the AD sync. So the way you need to do it is the following. Okay. You need to install the MS Online module. Sorry. Connect to the MSOL service. Right, so once you sign in, disable the DirSync. Now let's confirm that it has set correctly. So notice the DirSync is now disabled for this directory. All right. So this frees us up from to clean up users that is synchronized. All right, so it hasn't seen that just yet. All right, so we can now delete the user. Once you disable the DirSync, the AD Connect synchronization, you are free to delete these users. And if you no longer need this directory, you can go ahead and delete them as well. Alright, so now we navigate back to directory and delete this tenant altogether, the ADatem sync tenant. Alright, so if you get the follow the link to do the access management for Azure resources, set that to yes, save it, and then you'll be able to delete that tenant. Alright, so once you set that to yes, you're going to do a quick sign out, sign back in. Go to Active Directory. Delete the tenant. Now this will take some time to get that to take effect, but after you have elevated your privilege, you should be able to go to the directory and delete the directory. And don't forget to clean up this ADVM when your exercise is done.